what's quite key important about all these cars is obviously how they drive, so we need to talk about power. So let's talk about engines, gearboxes, see where the engines are positioned under the bonnets, because all these things have an attribute in terms of how they handle.
Yeah.
So should we start with the Audi?
Let's do that. I'll pop the bonnet, shall I?
Pop the bonnet.
Yeah, okay.
Come on, let's have a look under
here. And then we can
here.
talk about where it sits, but also the technology that sits.
Can I make a guess?
It's
all the way up here
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I got dirty hands.
No, look at they're not.
It's okay.
Gas struts though. Nice.
Oh, very nice.
It's all in, it's all in.
So yeah, there it is.
It's all there, just under that cover.
And it all works as well. So let's talk technology first.
Yeah.
So,
what's it got?
Across the range, either TFSI
For petrols?
for petrols,
Right.
and TDI for diesels.
And what's TFSI?
So TFSI, initially, the FSI bit stands
Yeah.
for fuel stratified injection.
Okay, yeah.
And that was all around arranging things. It's a little bit like how the cloud base is set up, arranged in layers.
Right.
So you have, sort of like a layer of fuel.
It's about the injection
And a layer
mixture.
of air on top of that, and how much.
Right.
And fundamentally, we always used to get, I think if I remember rightly, normal combustion was around 8:1, so 8 parts air to 1 part fuel. FSI takes it up to about 12 to 1 is the normal sort of combustion ratio that they tend to work with.
It's all about efficiency then.
Yeah,
Right.
but I always sort of try and explain TFSI technology. It's like diesel technology, common rail diesel technology, but for petrol
High
cars.
pressure injectors.
Yeah, so
and
you've
that kind
got
of thing.
two common, depending on the engine setup, whether it be a V or a sort of an inline 4.
Inline, yeah.
You've got a common rail,
Yeah.
which is kept at a very, very high pressure, i.e. via a pump.
That's right.
Where the fuel sits, and then as and when required, depending on what course you're doing with your right foot.
With your right foot, what speed you want, yeah.
Absolutely. Will determine what fuel gets injected. Because I think the other thing to remember is that we've got Audi valve lift system on here as well.
Go on, explain that one.
So Audi valve lift is around having 2 different lobe.
Different cam profiles.
Yeah, so basically the cam profile
Yeah.
can be higher or lower.
Yeah.
So basically it will open the inlet valve more or less.
And is it
To get less
fixed
in.
over those 2 lobes?
Yes.
Okay.
So just
the
the 2
cam-
positions, because the cam slides.
Yeah, the cam slides
Right.
basically.
Right.
So
To change the lift.
depending on what you're doing with your right foot.
So it's either efficiency or performance.
Really, yes, yeah. But obviously, as the fuel is metered as it should be, the right amount of fuel is being injected and burnt at the right time. The nice thing about having a bigger sort of combustion mix is, as we know, the better or the bigger combustion you get, the bigger bang you get. So therefore, the more power you get.
Sure.
As and when it's needed.
So adding on to that then, turbos?
Yes.
All different types of turbos, or singly?
Depending on normal turbos, so just singular turbos.
Single scroll.
Until we go over to TDI.
So you've just got a standard, your regular, and it's always across the A4 range, single turbo?
Yes, yeah. Because once you start going up into S mode, as in the S models, which are now on a diesel engine, you've got basically an electronic compressor working with those.
Right.
So they work in a slightly different way.
Gotcha.
And is it a compressor and a turbo, or just a single compressor?
A single compressor, yeah. Electronic
And that's
compressor.
electronically controlled.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that spins up from very low speed, and then that feeds the main big turbo.
You don't get any turbo lag then.
Tries to reduce the turbo lag,
But from a TDI point of view, what we tend to work with is turbo direct injection, is what TDI stands for. And basically what we use there is similar thing, common rail.
Oh, it's direct injection, not diesel.
Yeah. So direct into the combustion chamber.
Sure.
Yeah. And basically what that does is then use variable turbine geometry, so VTG, where we have electronically controlled guide vanes that will basically
adjust the pressure,
adjust the air that goes over the kind of make it either spin faster or
slow
not
it down.
To minimise the lag.
Depending on what you're doing with your right foot. So kind of FSI and TDI are very similar in their operation as far as how they work with the common rails and the direct fuel injection. But obviously giving different fuel efficiencies, because you get, again, even a bigger air fuel mix with diesel normally around 20 to 1, 18 to 20 to 1. So you get more, better efficiency out of those. So that's really, the 2 kind of engine technologies that we have with Audi.
Can I ask a question here?
Of course, yes.
And I'm standing here looking at this. You probably know what I'm going to ask.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
We've got the front wheels here.
Yes.
If I'm in line with the axle.
Yeah. and the engine is slightly more forward.
Engine's very far forward because you've got your turbo just
yeah,
here.
but you just touched there. That's not the engine, is it? The engine's here.
So fine.
Yeah. Okay. The front axle or the drive shafts more or less now sit directly under
Under that cylinder.
under that engine. Yeah.
The back part
or
of
under
the
the back
cylinder.
end of that engine. Okay. Because Audi, to be fair, used to get quite hard hit on the driving characteristics, being a front-wheel drive car. It was a little bit lackluster.
Right.
So in order to put a little bit more feeling into that and a little bit more weight over that front axle and the drive, then basically what we've done is the engine's more or less stayed the same place, but what we have done is move the wheels. So now, because if you think about it, if the wheels were in a normal situation coming out, an area of the gearbox, they would be back here a tad.
Oh, you're a long way back then, aren't you?
So
but now,
is the engine positioned here because it's a quattro?
No.
So that's the same whether it's a front-wheel drive or quattro.
But I tell you what
absolutely
you'll
right.
get though, the advantage of that is more cabin space.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause
So what's
packaging
here,
everything
you
out
gain
outside of the
more-
cockpit,
more in there.
outside the cabin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in order to, just going back to those drive shafts, in order to get those wheels a little bit further forward, so they sit underneath, the front axle and are more in line with the engine.
So they're at the front of the gearbox then, aren't they?
Yeah. So we've got sort of a gear mechanism that
Yeah.
comes out with cogs and splines, etc. That now bring the transmission or the drive out of the transmission this way, as in bringing it more forward. Then it comes out.
Do you get an advantage being a front-wheel drive car then, with the engine sitting over that axle for traction then? Does that help with understeer and?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you get more weight over it.
Yeah, absolutely right. So if it tends not
It'll
to when
create
you're going
a bit more
into a
understeer,
corner,
won't it, with the weight outside the axle line?
Yeah, you tend not to sort
Just
of
being front-wheel drive. If this was just a front-wheel drive, you've got the weight the wrong side of the axle
Yeah.
from a purist point of view.
And I think we've always sort of said it's. And I know you guys most probably might come back on me on this one, but
Right.
sometimes it's better to pull something than it is actually push it, because pushing it.
Well, for
can-
traction is better pulling.
Yeah.
So unless,
Isn't it?
well,
The rear-wheel drives do get a little bit hit when the conditions go cold.
Yes.
And unless you haven't got the right tyres,
exactly.
these things can come to a standstill.
But then also look from
quite quick.
on a dynamic point of view, accelerating off the line.
Oh, it's perfect.
Exactly.
Best
So,
place.
but that links
Because
back to,
that's when the front-wheel drive will scrabble.
and also the
'Cause
weight
it's trying to
transfers
pull all
to
the
the
weight forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But
The
that's the different personalities, isn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
Like you were saying
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Another thing I've got on power is the badging's changed on these.
Oh, don't. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I've got to ask it because I have to say,
Thanks.
what's the 35?
It's a range.
What's this one?
Now, so the engine displacements, as in the
But
1.6,
the size of engine.
1.5, 1.4, whatever it might be, 2 litre, they all sit now within a range of power output.
Right.
Because with electronics or electric cars coming, so hybrids, etc., we get sort of horsepower and kilowattage.
Right.
So you get sort of 2 forms of power.
Yeah.
So it was
It's
really
like
to
a 2 forms of
determine-
readout, isn't it?
Yeah, it was determine where that whole power output sits, basically.
Right.
So yeah, you'll have them ranging 35, 40, 45,
Because it's every 5, isn't it?
55. Yeah.
Because I see the e-tron's badged at 55,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Which
So
I
that's
guess
an
is
equivalent of a.
that would be the equivalent of a combustion engine
Yes.
car. It
Yeah,
would be
in just brake horsepowerage.
quite high, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the higher the denomination,
The more power.
Right,
Right,
it's
okay.
going to have. Yeah.
It's just confusing, isn't it? From
I think it's going to take a little bit of
going
time
from an
just to
engine
get-
size to a number.
But I remember BMW have gone down that route now,
we
haven't they?
absolutely
so
have.
I think you're perhaps the odd one out.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
smiling because we had the 318s, 320s,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that you said the 3 was the series,
Yeah.
and the number after that was the size of the
Next
engine.
2 with the size of the engine, weren't
Exactly. Now, no, it's a virtual output.
Yeah.
they? Well, so we have sort of slightly changed that to a
we
little
know across all the manufacturers, downsizing engines have got smaller,
Yeah.
the efficiency's gone up, but
That's
performance
right.
has gone up as
Through
well.
turbocharging, really,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So we have an apparent output of an equivalence,
Yes.
but the engine's got.
But the engine's physically smaller, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does
Gotcha.
that help on that? Is
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Perfect.
Can I give another
Answers.
another opinion then? Can we have a look at ours? Can I have a look at the BMW and I'll
Yes,
show you a
let's have a look
different
at your
layout?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at that.
Interesting. I'll shut this down.
Go on then.
Now,
I think Nick's quite proud of something here.
Yeah, I
you can tell it.
He was because he's getting ready to
look
show
up on
us.
his face, isn't he?
Yeah.
I pull this twice. I don't get dirty fingers under there.
Why twice?
Because
Mine
you
are.
have to, by law, you have to have one to open it, and then you come around and open that as your second
Oh, I
safety.
see. Right. Okay.
Safety.
So
I
they
don't have to get my fingers
I
dirty
see.
underneath.
But you have to do 2 operations with your hands.
Yes,
Oh,
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
dirty.
Wow.
Now, a couple of things, and this goes
Very clean,
back
isn't
to
it?
that. It's very clean, isn't it? Now, this is a hybrid one. We're not going to get into the hybrid discussion.
Okay.
But the thing I wanted to bring up, first of all, is the position of the engine, because that was our last conversation.
Yeah.
Ours, we try and put it as far back and as low down as possible. Now, we've got to remember with this being a hybrid, there's an awful lot more
Actual
technology.
engine's about there, isn't
Yeah,
it?
so there's our axle line.
Yeah,
It's actually,
I can see.
The engine is behind the axle line.
Yes.
And we mentioned that 50-50 weight distribution. There's one of it.
Yeah.
Yes, we do compromise in here, but from the personality, the drive
It's
is
the
number
DNA
one.
of the car,
yeah,
isn't it?
That's
It's
number
the
one.
DNA.
So we want best in class for driving dynamics
Yeah.
and adequate on the money for safe space inside. Let's come back to some of the technology you mentioned, the TFSI and
Yeah.
TDI, etc. Now, BMW's terminology, you'll see on all of our cars which aren't hybrids, it will say BMW twin power turbo. Now everybody goes,
they need all of that.
twin turbo?
What's twin power?
Let me explain. Twin, two things, two technologies.
So there's two things there, yeah?
Two things. Now, as we know, as car guys, if you want more performance, the economy goes down.
Yeah.
If you want economy, the performance goes
Performance goes down, yeah.
down. Now, what we try and do is give you best of both worlds.
Okay.
It sounds marketing, but it's true. So we have two things that focus on economy, and that's the BMW twin power. And that's all about economy. So we have variability on our valves. You mentioned
Audi valve lift.
Audi valve lift. Now, I asked the question about, there's two stages to it.
Yes, yeah.
The difference with ours, we have Valvetronic and Vanos, and they do two different things on the valves. One looks at the timing of it,
Yeah.
when that valve opens.
It's actually cam profile.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but it's on a fully variable. It's not
Yeah.
one or other, it's fully
Oh,
variable.
okay, right.
The other is how far that valve opens.
Yeah, okay.
So for example, if we're doing an economy, driving slowly, or it's idling, we open that valve slightly later, shut it slightly earlier.
And just enough to
Exactly.
get the right mix in.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it
When
can
we
be
put a
quite,
foot
just
down-
quite lean.
Exactly. When we put our foot down, open it earlier,
Yeah.
shut it later,
Yeah.
more bang, off we go.
Okay.
And we can do that on both timing and how far it opens as well. So it's got two elements of that. That's our valve elements of it. We also have, as you mentioned, the fuel stratification,
Yeah.
high precision direct injection for
Okay.
petrol
Yeah.
or common rail for diesel. Okay.
Any form of variable turbines on that, like the Audi's got?
Okay, then the third element of that is our turbo. So those two elements are all about the efficiency.
Yep.
And then we have the turbo that gives us performance. We know it forces more air in. And we have got lots of different turbo technology depending on the engines. We have single scroll,
Yeah.
twin scroll, which I know you're going to talk about in a little
Yep,
while.
yep.
And then variable vane on our diesels.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, to maximise the performance, but also minimise the lag. We use the different turbo technologies depending on the engine and what
Engine
we
size
want.
kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's across different ones. So where it says BMW twin power turbo, twin bit means the two technologies for efficiency.
I see.
Yeah.
And then a turbo technology.
A turbo technology to then back
depending
it
on
up.
exactly.
Right, got you.
So that's us.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
Gotcha.
All yours.
Leaves one
Right,
then, doesn't it?
come on over.
I'll come around this side. I'm not putting my hands on to get dirty fingers.
Yeah, I could get dirty fingers here.
We all knew where they were. That's the main
Yeah,
thing.
no, that's it. So here's ours, very heavily covered. Coming back to when I think it was yourself was saying about the badging of the engines. So this particular model being a C220, we do a C250 or C300D, and they're all 2 litres.
Okay.
And then it's the power output that changes.
So that's on the electronics.
Yes,
Is
it's
it-
on mapping, the control of the turbos, and how that works, and then the main setup on the air intake.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, they're all a 2 litre,
Okay.
engine, and then it's just the three different power outputs that you want to have.
Oh,
see.
okay.
So that's kind of how they do it, really. Diesel technology for us, we have common rail, high pressure, a bit like similar to what you have
Yeah.
on the Audi. No,
Yeah.
no real difference.
Yeah,
from there.
we call it common rail.
Common rail, high pressure injection. They're all twin turbo,
All your diesels
twin
have,
turbochargers.
So there's
Two-
two separate ones.
Yeah, so small one feeds a big one.
so bi-turbo.
So is that
So like
bi-turbo?
a bi-turbo, yeah. So
Because
it's-
again, that was one thing that we've had that before.
Yeah.
And obviously it still remains in some of the older cars. But
That's it.
I always thought with twin being and having got twins, you've got 2 of
Yes.
the same.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then normally with an inline 4 like this, they're normally sequential. They're in line together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's twin turbo, not bi-turbo.
Twin.
Twin, yeah, so
Yeah.
two the
Because they're
same.
two separate
So-
ones.
Two the same.
Whereas bi-turbo for me means
Yeah.
that you've got two turbos, but in one sort of casing as such.
Ah, so we would say one
Well,
small, one big.
Yeah,
well, that's what we would have,
some
but they'd be in the same
manufacturers,
place.
yeah, some manufacturers say bi-turbo because the small one feeds the big one.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So to speak.
And one takes care of low revs and one takes care of
That's
high
right.
revs.
Yeah. So the smaller one can normally spin up to like 180,000 RPM, something like that.
Yeah.
To try and help eradicate turbo lag. But these
Yeah.
these are twin.
And we mentioned, both of us, on diesel variable vane to minimise the lag, to take away from having that's our replacement to twin turbos, basically.
Yeah.
Do you have variable vane at all?
No, nothing like that on here.
Okay.
So this is for this particular engine, this is Euro 6.
Yep.
So this is, for want of a better, our older engine.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got a Euro 7 diesel out, which is in the C300DE, which is our diesel plug-in hybrid. That's got the variable vane turbo geometry in it.
And is that a 2 litre again?
Yes.
This is 2 litre again.
Yep. 2 litre 4-cylinder inline.
Yep.
That's got
Variable
that's got the variable vane because that's the next generation on. So
Right.
when these engines were done years ago, variable vane
Wasn't
was
there.
only just starting to come in.
Okay.
And we'd kind of set our engine range line up without it. But our next generation of 2 litre diesels will be variable vane.
Right.
What about petrol then?
Yeah, so petrol is turbo again, petrol turbo.
Now, what I mean, for us, we've got different turbo technologies.
Yeah,
Is it all fixed?
It's all pretty fixed.
Do you do twin scroll?
We did do,
Oh, you don't anymore.
but we're on our next generation. Sorry, the next one is twin turbo. Sorry, twin scroll.
Twin
It is.
scroll.
Single turbo, twin scroll, and then that's the next generation on that we've got. But that's in the C300DE, which is obviously
I think it's
not
worth
this one.
highlighting twin scroll.
Yeah.
Go on.
Go on, she's yours.
So you have two feeds of air into it, which is normally
Okay.
cylinders 1 and 3
Right.
have one side of the turbo, and then 2 and 4 have the other side of the turbo. So
Gotcha.
effectively, it's mimicking a twin turbo, but in one.
I see. Yeah.
And then therefore, it's a more efficient unit, and you're only running one turbo.
Yeah.
When we
But
talk about
you've
it,
normally got a bigger casing because you're feeding 4 cylinders into that,
Yes.
into
Yeah.
splitting it on each
we,
side.
we use it to minimise lag. So you
Yeah.
have that pressure, have a big hole for the air, or then you have two smaller ones. The pressure's up, the speed comes out,
That's
the turbo
right.
spins earlier.
Yes.
So for us, it's all about response.
Yeah.
Get that turbo to respond quicker, throttle response, performance,
That's it.
etc. Yeah, which is
So
cool.
it's the next generation of tech, isn't it?
Yeah,
Twin,
it is.
twin scroll turbo.
Right.
So that's what we've got in our C300DE,
Okay.
which is available now, but that's the Euro 7 next step engine. So it's kind of been introduced in this model, even though in the next couple of years, this will be replaced.
Yeah.
So two questions then. Badging. So 300. Did you say DE and 220?
So yeah, C300D is the sort of next generation one on.
Okay.
That's the Euro 7 engine.
And do the numbers link to the size of the engine?
No, it's equivalent to what the power output of a 3 litre would be.
Same as us then.
Yeah. So this is a C220, so this is 194 horsepower,
Yeah.
400 newton meters. Then when you jump up, it goes up to 245 horsepower with about 445 newton meters of torque.
He wants to
I
talk.
wonder
Yeah, he's
where
talking about the
engine
axle
sits.
line. So I'm stood in the middle,
Yeah.
and our engine
Yeah.
is almost pretty much in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Give or
it's
take.
right
So
on
it's
top of it.
it's a little bit. It's between the BMW and the
Yeah, it
Audi.
is, isn't it? Yeah,
It's
yeah.
between the
Yeah.
two.
I love the fact that they're all different and have different
Yeah.
layouts and have different personalities to them.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I noticed, there's a lot of space actually here, isn't there?
Yeah,
Lots of space.
yeah, it's quite a lot here.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we get to the AMG models, you have a bridge plate that sits in here.
So you extend this forward.
So it's all done on an aluminium frame that the AMG
all out.
front end sits out a lot further.
Yeah.
Because you've got much bigger intercoolers and bigger radiators to fit.
So none of this will carry over. None.
No, so bumpers, the whole front end's completely different. So bonnet, front wings,
Yeah.
front panel is all completely different. So the chassis is the same, but the wings and bonnet and front end won't fit a C63.
Okay.
Now, behind the engine then, if our engines are different,
Yeah. Then our transmissions have got to be.
So 9-speed G-tronic box. That's our
9-speed?
9-speed.
How many speeds do you need?
You need 9.
Why?
So because it's best or nothing.
Okay. Oh,
So it's
Oh.
9 speed. So it's our own design of gearbox as well.
is it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get it licensely made
Okay.
for us under our own design.
and it's a torque converter.
Torque converter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they efficient? Because torque
Yeah.
converters are renowned. I mean, don't get me wrong. We
Yeah,
still have
they
a transmission with torque
So
converter.
gears
but
on this, for
they're very
example,
heavy.
depending on what dynamic select mode you're in comfort mode, for example, it'll start off in second gear.
Yes.
And as you accelerate, it won't go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It'll It'll jump the gear relative to the speed of the gear change that it wants to match you at.
Okay.
So it could go 2, 4, 6, 8.
Yeah.
Or it might go 2, 5, 7.
Yeah.
There's no set pattern. So depending on what dynamic select you're in, we'll change the mapping of the gearbox to then match your up change and down changes in auto mode to your style of driving.
And where do they measure top speed? Which gear would top speed be measured in? 9 or 8?
Normally 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're 7 rather than 8. So we
On an 8.
Yeah, exactly. We're one down from that.
Yeah.
So an overdrive is a gear reduction.
That's it. It's the
Yeah,
same.
that's right. So,
Do you have do you have a double clutch transmissions in this range in the C class?
C63.
Just on the C63.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything else is torque converter.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Even a C43 is a torque converter.
Yeah.
But it has faster upshifts and downshifts.
Yeah. But that's programming.
Because it's a C43 AMG model. It's sharper driving than the
So
standard.
that's programming for.
That's programming. So that's purely just done on the mapping.
Yeah.
That's just the computer telling the gearbox how to behave.
And of course manual as well, or not?
Manual is an option, but very, very few are taken up. It's pretty much 9 times out of 10.
I think
they're
the
all
efficiencies
automatics.
of automatic transmissions now have got so much better.
Yeah.
And you can drive them like a manual, to be fair, can't you? So, yeah.
What about the Audi? What's that got in it?
Okay, so Audi does have a torque converter, 8-speed Tiptronic transmission
8-speed as well.
Tiptronic. Yeah, purely a name.
Okay.
So that's
Purely a name. That's
but it's a standard automatic
it's
gearbox
a
with
normal,
a torque converter.
what you would name as a pneumatic, valved transmission, basically, with a torque converter. But that's, to be fair, only really used on the bigger engines, so the Vs.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Anything smaller than that, we revert to the double clutch S-tronic. We love a tronic.
Tiptronic is torque converter.
Yeah.
S-tronic is double clutch.
Is dual clutch. Yes.
Dual clutch, right? Okay.
So basically, clutch 1 looks after the odd gears. Clutch 2 looks after the evens, and they pre-select as and when required.
Yeah.
And we'll change up or change down, whichever you need.
And do you all have, as a driver, have paddles?
Yeah.
For everything?
Okay. Same in here. Got paddle shift if you want to.
Yeah.
And of course, you can also move the gear shift over. The gear shift in the Audi is fly-by-wire, so it doesn't actually go like this anymore.
It's not physically linked.
No.
It's just a
it's a switch.
Just a switch.
Yeah. Same with us.
So you get that extra piece of, if you want to drive it manually with the gear shift, then it's just simply a case of either forward or back. So quite, I guess, race orientated.
Meant to add one thing on the Mercedes. We have Camtronic.
Oh,
Camtronic to control our valves on our engines.
Is that a similar thing to what we?
Yeah, it's just our phrase for it. So it's the same, similar systems to what you guys have got. We just call it Camtronic. So everyone's got their own terminology, but fundamentally it's the same. It's the same principle of altering efficiency and power.
Yeah.
On ours, we've got the 8-speed.
Okay. So hang on a bit. We've got 7, 8,
9. Obviously better.
And whose gearbox is that?
So ZF.
Ours is our own. Oh, yours is ZF.
ZF.
Right. So that's off the shelf,
But
programmed to how you want it.
off the shelf, yes, our programming.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that's very important from our point of view, is the programming we do is ours.
Yeah.
Having some experience myself in driving another car with the same off the shelf gearbox, expecting to do something and it didn't was quite a shock.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to here.
Yeah.
One of the things, as you guys have said, everything the same. We've got the paddles, etc. Things that we can add into this here, launch control, but also the transmission talks to the navigation.
Yeah.
And that for me is a really good one. So it's in the right gear for a corner or a roundabout,
Yeah.
and the efficiency, linking to our drive performance control.
Yeah.
Go between eco, comfort, sport. It will change those bits, but
Yes.
also talks to the navigation. You don't need a destination in there either. It just talks.
It knows where you are.
It knows
So it
where
just
you
knows
are.
the whole time.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Which is a fantastic one to be able to do that, and the programming behind it is very, very good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So they all sound, sort of similar. It just sounds like the number of gears.
It's just different terminology for each individual manufacturer that wants to call it their own.
Yeah, that's cool. At least
Excellent.
we know now, sort of how that power gets transmitted from the engine
And
to
how
the
it drives.
transmission and out to the road wheels, really, which
Yeah.
is kind of cool, isn't it? So it sort of encapsulates everything together.
Great.